Episode 270, When There Is No Pause Button, Riding Out the Storm. Well, hey, friend, welcome to another episode of the Not Your Average Autism Mom podcast. I am your host, Shannon Urquiola, and I am, as always, so glad that you are here. I created this podcast not just to share tips and insight, but to give you a space where you don't feel so alone in this parenting journey that none of us plan for. This isn't just a podcast. It is your weekly reminder that you are doing so much better than you think. And that no matter what today looks like, you've got someone in your corner who gets it. So let's talk about the stuff that no one else is saying out loud. Let's laugh a little, maybe cry a little, and always walk away with something that makes life a little easier. Today's episode came from something I read that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. It was written by a friend that I met last year. Her name is Ashley, and she shares her family stories on a page called Raising Brantley. If you don't follow her on social media, you really should. And as I read her words, I thought, this is it. This is the part of autism parenting that so many of you are living, but not enough people are talking about out loud. It's one of those things that unless you've lived it, you just don't get it. So, Ashley, my friend, if you ever hear this episode, just know that your honesty is the reason this conversation is happening today. Because what she described, it wasn't polished, it wasn't filtered, it wasn't one of those we made it through and here's the lesson kind of moments. Those moments when your child is completely dysregulated, but they're so happy, laughing, smiling, thriving in it. And you're standing there overwhelmed, exhausted, trying to contain the chaos that feels like it's coming at you from every direction. So, I want to talk about what's actually happening because this is where things get confusing. We've been taught to think if a child is laughing or smiling or happy, things must be good. But that's not always true for our kids. Sometimes that laughter is coming from a place of sensory overload, impulsivity, or neurological dysregulation, not joy. It's not peaceful happiness. It's amped up, out of control energy that feels good in their body, even if it's creating complete chaos around them. So let's talk about those nights, the ones where your child isn't just busy, they're not just a little wild. It feels like something has completely taken over their body, like the energy is coming from somewhere deeper than just behavior, almost like it's crawling out of their skin and suddenly it's everywhere. And the funny thing is, it can start with something so small, something that in another house on another day just wouldn't be a big deal. But in your house, it's the spark, the butter dumped on the floor, smeared everywhere. And you just stand there for a second, trying to decide, do I laugh? Do I cry? Do I just walk away and pretend that I didn't see it? But you don't, because you can't. Because by the time you process that moment, they're already on to the next thing. And now it's escalated. They're climbing all over the furniture and the counters and anything that gives them height. And you're saying, get down before you even finish the sentence, because you already know that they're moving faster than you can react. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, you realize this isn't really about the butter anymore, or the counters, or the climbing, or the mess. Because the deeper exhaustion starts coming from the feeling that no matter how fast you move, you're always trying to catch up. And this is where it shifts, because it's no longer about the mess. It's no longer about the behavior. It's about the feeling that you are constantly 3 steps behind. And sometimes it's not even the big things. Sometimes it's just the constantness of it all. You finally sit down after being up all day. And before your body even touches the couch cushions, you hear a crash or a cabinet slam or running feet or water pouring somewhere it shouldn't be. And why is it that water always water involved somehow. Like, how are you wet? Why is the floor wet? Why is the dog wet? And of course, nobody knows why. And your whole nervous system immediately goes on alert again. Or maybe they're jumping from couch to couch while you're trying to make dinner, opening the refrigerator 15 times, climbing on the counters, dumping things out just to dump them out. And every single time you redirect them, they laugh like it's part of this game. And after a while, it's not even the behavior that gets to you, it's the fact that you never fully relax. And this is where the disconnect happens because you're experiencing stress and exhaustion and maybe embarrassment if there's other people around, while they're experiencing stimulation and excitement and sensory input. Same moment, two completely different realities. You're always listening, always watching, always anticipating. Even when things are technically calm, you're waiting for the next thing. Think about it. You could be dead asleep and hear one tiny suspicious sound from another room and immediately sit up straight. What was that? Because, I mean, let's just be honest. Autism parent hearing is basically its own superpower at this point, right? And this is exactly why so many moms raising autistic children stay stuck in survival mode for years without even realizing it. Because your nervous system adapts to always being on, always scanning, always preparing for the next thing. And eventually you stop noticing how much stress your body is carrying because it becomes your normal. That's a huge part of the coaching work I do with moms in my private membership, helping them recognize what survival mode actually looks like in real life and giving them tools and teaching them how to support themselves instead of constantly feeling like they're drowning in it. So let me just paint a picture that you might recognize. You're at someone else's house. Maybe it's family, maybe it's friends, and it starts small. They won't keep their clothes on. You redirect, they laugh. You try again, they run. Now you're following them from room to room, trying to stay calm while also scanning everything that they could get into next. And then something escalates. Food gets thrown, something gets smeared, something gets broken, and they're laughing. Not being defiant, not trying to embarrass you. They're just, in it. And you can feel it building in your body. Your heart's racing, your jaw's tightening, your internal voice is saying, please stop, please just stop. But there is no pause button. And here's the part that hits the hardest. It's not the behavior, it's the contrast. Because you're looking at your child thinking, how are you okay right now? How is this fun for you? How are we in the exact same moment, but we're having completely opposite experiences? Now, I want to ground this for just a second. This isn't about your child being bad, and it's not about you doing anything wrong. This is about a nervous system that is seeking input, that's overwhelmed, that's underregulated, or stuck in this loop of stimulation. For some kids, that chaos actually feeds their system. It gives them input they're craving, even if it looks completely unhinged from the outside. Or maybe your child gets what I used to call that look, that shift in energy where you can literally see the dysregulation building before anything ever happens. If you've been listening to me for a long time, Jordan has always been a hand wringer. And that was always my signal. If he started wringing his hands, I knew things were getting ready to get out of control. And so what do? You start to try to get ahead of it. You suggest a snack, you redirect, you offer screens, you suggest outside. You're basically throwing every strategy you have ever learned at the wall, hoping that something sticks. Snack, bath, trampoline, iPad, swing, outside, inside. Meanwhile, they look at you like, good ideas, mom. And sometimes nothing touches it. Because once that nervous system reaches a certain point, it's almost like the train has already left the station. And can we talk about how exhausting it is when they are sensory seeking and destructive at the same time? Because that's just a completely different level of hypervigilance. You're hiding markers and locking cabinets and watching water and watching doors and watching pets. And the craziest part, you can clean the same mess 47 times. And somehow you still sound shocked every single time. Why would you do this? Even though deep down you already know exactly why. You can't even fully focus on a conversation because one ear is always listening for what's happening in the other room. And people who haven't lived this life sometimes say things like, just let him play. He's fine. Just ignore it. She'll be okay. She's just being a kid. And you're thinking, no, you don't understand. This is not regular kid energy. This is a nervous system that feels like it's operating at 1,000 miles an hour. And I think this is the part that becomes so hard to explain to people who haven't lived it firsthand. Because from the outside, it can look like chaos. But inside your home, inside your body, it feels very different because you know it isn't intentional. This isn't your child trying to be difficult. You can see it for what it is, a nervous system that is overloaded, a body moving faster than the brain can regulate, a system that has tipped past the point of control. You know that. But knowing that doesn't make it easier to live through it in real time. And I want to talk about you for a minute because in those moments, you are managing safety, managing the environment, managing your emotions, managing other people who are watching, and trying to prevent the next thing from happening all at once. That's not just parenting, that's full body crisis management on repeat. And while all of this is happening, your nervous system is responding too. That's the part we don't talk about enough because your body feels every bit of it. Every crash, every spill, every near miss. Your shoulders tighten a little more. You can literally feel your body clenching in real time. Your jaw is tight, your shoulders are up, and your patience stretches just a little thinner. All while your Apple Watch is politely suggesting breathing exercises every 15 minutes. And there's this constant hum in the background. What's next? What's he going to do next? How do I stop this before it escalates again? And then after that comes the after, the cleanup, the silence, the replaying it in your head over and over again, asking yourself, what could I have done differently? Why does this keep happening? Why does it feel like I'm always on edge? And here's the part that no one really prepares you for. You don't get to tap out. You don't get to say, you know what, I'm just going to go. We'll try again tomorrow. You don't get to walk away and reset. And I want to share something with you here because I know when you're in these moments, it can feel like this is just your life forever. And I want you to hear this from someone who has lived it. I am thankfully past this stage with Jordan, but I wasn't always. There were so many days and nights that looked exactly like what we're talking about right now. The constant movement, the unpredictability, the feeling like you're always one step behind, trying to keep up with a body that just doesn't slow down. I remember those nights where I would just stand there thinking, how is there still more energy left in you? And at the same time thinking, I don't have any left in me. And somehow they're still moving around the house like they just drank 6 espressos and entered a fitness competition. And here's the part that might make you smile a little today. So, because life has a funny way of bringing things back around. So, we got a puppy in March. Her name is Juno, and she's about 4.5 months old now. And let me tell you, wow, the similarities, they are real. I have said at least 100 times already, this puppy is taking me back. She is busy. I swear that she wakes up every morning with a full agenda of bad decisions already planned. She is into everything. She moves fast, she makes messes even faster, and has absolutely zero remorse about any of it. I'll turn my back for 2 seconds and she's chewing something she shouldn't have, dragging something across the floor, or proudly sitting in the middle of a mess that she just made like it's her greatest accomplishment. And I catch myself laughing sometimes because I'm like, this feels very familiar. And now listen, it's not the same, not even close, because raising your children through this is layered with so much more emotionally, physically, mentally. But what it does remind me of is that feeling of constant motion, constant redirection, and that sense of I can't take my eyes off you for even a second. And it's given me this moment of perspective where I can look back and think, wow, we really lived that and we got through it. And I want you to hear that part, not in a way that dismisses what you're going through right now, but in a way that reminds you this stage you're in right now, this season, it won't always feel exactly like this. You will ride it out. You will keep showing up right in the middle of the storm. And that storm, it doesn't follow rules. It doesn't give warnings. It doesn't say, hey, by the way, this is about to be a hard night. So prepare yourself, right? It just happens. And I want to slow it down for just a second because this is where I want you to understand something that really matters. When your child is in this state, it can look like chaos, but inside their body, it often feels like relief or stimulation they can't regulate any other way. That's why you might see uncontrollable laughing, smiling, screaming, excitement, even while everything around them feels completely out of control. And there it is again, that split reality they're experiencing, right? Because they're experiencing stimulation and relief and movement, and you're experiencing exhaustion and overwhelm and stress. Same house, same moment, completely different, right? And after a while, living inside those completely opposite experiences at the same time can really start to mess with your head emotionally. Because honestly, there are moments where you almost start questioning yourself. Because from the outside looking in, people might even think, oh, he's having fun. She looks so happy. At least he's happy. Meanwhile, you are standing there completely depleted. Your heart is racing, your body hurts from being so tight, your brain feels overloaded from trying to monitor 50 things at once. And sometimes that creates guilt because you think, why am I so overwhelmed when she's so happy? But happiness and regulation are not always the same thing. And that realization matters because sometimes their body is craving stimulation so intensely that the chaos itself feels rewarding to them, while your nervous system experiences that exact same environment as stress. And this right here is the kind of thing I spend so much time coaching moms through in our private membership because so many moms are walking around believing if my child is happy, why am I struggling so much? And then you feel guilty for being overwhelmed. But once you start understanding the difference between, happiness and sensory seeking and nervous system overload and dysregulation, everything starts making more sense. Not easier overnight, but clearer. And sometimes that clarity and awareness alone can help you stop fighting yourself on top of fighting the situation. So, I want to talk about when you're living inside moments like this. what are some things that actually help? Not perfection, not controlling every circumstance or every behavior, because we both know that we can't control those things. Not becoming some endlessly patient version of yourself that never gets overwhelmed, just enough support for them and for you to get through the moment safely with a little less guilt attached to it afterwards. So the first thing is regulate you first, even just a little. And I know that's easier said than done a lot of times, but your nervous system matters here. Even a few minutes of just slow breathing, even lowering your voice instead of raising it. And that was a big one for me because we're the loud family and we tend to raise our voices. The reality is that sometimes lowering your energy in the room is the most regulating thing available. The second thing is drop the expectation that you can fix it in the moment. This isn't a quick correction situation. This is a ride it out situation. And sometimes the shift is simply recognizing that. Because sometimes we enter these moments thinking, okay, if I had just said the right thing, if I had redirected differently, if I had stayed calm enough, then I can stop this from happening. And sometimes you might help. You might be able to reduce it. You might be able to support it. But sometimes the wave is already here. And fighting that reality is what exhausts you even more. Instead of spending 45 minutes desperately trying to force your child into calm, you shift into, okay, we're riding this out safely. That mindset shift alone can lower your frustration in those moments. Not because the moment suddenly becomes easy, but because you stop expecting yourself to magically control something neurological that you can't. And this is one of the biggest mindset shifts I help moms with in coaching, because so many of us are unknowingly walking around with this belief that if I just parent better, if I stay calmer, if I have more patience and try harder and be more consistent, then these moments wouldn't happen. And that belief creates so much shame and pressure. Sometimes the most freeing thing you can realize is this is not always a parenting failure. Sometimes this is simply a nervous system struggling to regulate. And learning the difference changes how you respond to your child and how you treat yourself afterwards. Number three is focus on safety over perfection. Not everything is going to be prevented. Not everything is going to be clean. And this one was huge for me with Jordan because when your child is dysregulated, you can spend the whole time trying to stop every behavior and end up completely emotionally fried. Sometimes you have to ask yourself, is this dangerous? Or is this just dysregulation that's making me really uncomfortable? Because those are not always the same thing. Maybe every cushion in your living room ends up on the floor. Maybe the kitchen is destroyed. Maybe your child is pacing, scripting loudly, crashing into pillows, dumping toys everywhere. And in that moment, you decide, okay, nobody is unsafe. I can clean all of this later. And that's different than running towards every little thing, trying to keep the house looking normal while your child's nervous system is anything but normal in that moment. Not everything is going to go how you want. But if everyone is safe, that's a win in that moment. Number four, simplify everything. This is not the time for lectures or explaining. It's not the time for, why are you doing this? How many times have I told you? You need to calm down. Because when their nervous system is overloaded, too many words can actually increase the chaos. What this looked like for me sometimes with Jordan was literally becoming almost robotic with my communication. Short, clear, calm. I'd say things like clothes on, hands safe, come sit, bathroom, shoes on. That's it. No emotional speeches, no trying to reason in the middle of dysregulation, because the second you start explaining too much, you can literally hear yourself becoming their background noise. Number 5, take the pressure off yourself and accept the moment for what it is. It's not forever, it's just right now. Because fighting reality in that moment only adds another layer of stress on top of what's already happening. And this one matters so much because I think so many of us secretly believe that if we were better at this, this wouldn't happen. And that thought will eat you alive. You can be an amazing mother and still have nights that completely unravel. You can do all the therapies, create all the routines, provide the sensory supports, and still have hard moments. So let's talk about what this might look like in real life, not replaying the entire night afterward, looking for what you did wrong, not deciding that you failed because your child struggled, not, comparing your hardest moments to someone else's curated social media version of autism parenting. Sometimes taking the pressure off yourself looks like simply sitting on the couch after they finally fall asleep and just saying, you know what, that was hard and we made it through. And that matters because here's the truth: you can do everything right, and nights like this will still happen. It doesn't mean that you failed. It means you're parenting a child whose nervous system sometimes overrides everything else. And honestly, some nights, the biggest accomplishment is simply, okay, nobody ended up in the emergency room and the house is still standing. That's a win. And before we wrap up, I really want you to hear this part, especially if you've been hard on yourself while listening to this episode, because this is the part no one really prepares you for. That parenting autistic children can sometimes feel like living in two worlds at once, their experience and yours, and learning how to stand in that space without losing yourself. Because at the end of the day, this is part of the parenting that nobody sees. Not the perfectly posed photos, not the milestone updates, not the carefully edited social media moments, but the nights where everything feels loud and chaotic and completely overwhelming. And you stay anyway. That's the real work. And if you're listening to this episode thinking, finally, someone understands what this actually feels like, that's exactly why I created the Not Your Average Autism Mom membership, because these are the conversations that we have there, the real ones, not just therapy appointments and IEP talk, but the emotional side of living the life every single day. The exhaustion, the guilt, the hypervigilance, the grief, the overwhelm, the nervous system burnout that so many of us are carrying silently. And most importantly, learning how to support you inside this journey too, because you matter in this story. If you've had moments like this, the messy ones, the overwhelming ones, the ones that would never make it into a highlight reel, if you've ever stood in your kitchen or your living room or somebody else's house surrounded by mess and noise and movement and feeling completely overwhelmed while your child laughed like they were having the time of their life, and you thought, I don't know how much more of this I can take. I hope this episode helped you understand something important. You are not failing in those moments. You are parenting through something incredibly hard in real time, and that changes everything. You are not alone. This is part of it, but it's not all of it. And the more honestly we talk about these moments, the less shame we carry while we're living through them. Every week I'm here because I know how hard this is. And I want you to know that you're never walking this road alone. If you want to go deeper and connect with other amazing moms, check out our private membership where real conversation, support, and understanding are waiting for you. And also, listen, if this episode made you feel seen, inspired, or just a little more equipped to take on the day, I would love it if you would leave a review and share it with another mom who might need to hear it. The more we share, the more moms we can lift up. And remember, until next week, have a great week ahead. And above all, you, mama, are doing amazing at this mom thing.